Awesome. Well, Anda, thanks for coming to Humans and Brands. I'm excited to
Thank you
talk
for
to
having
you.
me.
I think we should start off. We don't know each other, so this
No,
is
we don't.
fun.
Yeah.
So I think, like, can we start off with a little bit of talk to me about your business, why you started it, what you guys do, and kind of like what led you down that pathway to start your own company?
So you asked me where I was from. I was born and raised in Transylvania. I'm very proud to be Transylvanian and Romanian. And I came to the U.S. with a really big dream. I kept telling my parents, I'm going to start a revolution. I'm going to start a revolution. And I landed in Silicon Valley, studied, ended up focusing on data science. And the path kind of led me naturally into entrepreneurship. My parents were also entrepreneurs. And even though I wasn't necessarily trying to be who they were, but there was something about the creative freedom to get to build your own thing that really attracted me to it. And then, boy, oh boy, the journey of entrepreneurship is, not what you expect it to be.
Yeah,
We all
non-linear.
read, yeah, exactly. At the time, I was reading, about Evan Spiegel and all these other founders who, within a few years, had become multi-billionaires and had built these empires. But as it turns out, entrepreneurship is just a really humbling experience that breaks you down and really finds a way to trigger all of the different things inside of you that you didn't know you had.
Yeah, trust me, I know. And also, we're going to talk about it, but like, talk about like spirituality and like having to face yourself and look in the mirror. Like entrepreneurship really does make you do that. You know,
100%.
it's like, oh, you think that you're like good at this? Like,
Yes.
show up every day and do the same thing consistently for the next 5
Or
years.
you think you've dealt with your fear of failure or your fear of whatever, letting people down. Like, let me show you that you haven't. And it's a daily reminder. It's very humbling. And so I kind of realized that it takes so much ego to start a business because you have to believe that you alone have an idea that's better than anyone else and you alone can do it. But then the true kind of rite of passage is when you have to let go of all your ego to actually build the business.
Whoa.
And
So you need
there
you
was a
need an
turning point.
ego, and then you need your ego to be smashed.
Kind of,
And then
because
it's
you
like you have to
realize
start
it
over.
has to stop being about you. Like, as soon as you
Yeah.
have a product and a team, you're accountable to them. Or maybe another way to say it is the shift from founder to CEO. Founder is a title you always have. It's kind of like being a mom. Like, you're always going to be a mom as soon as you have your kid. But a CEO is a job. And that job you have to earn every single day. And that job is not about you. It's about the people you serve. It's about the shareholders. It's about the clients. And having that mental shift as a founder, I think, is really hard. So anyway, I know I didn't fully answer
Cool.
your question,
I like
but
that.
but
No, but that's really interesting.
sharing
That
a bit
point
about the journey.
founder, CEO, like, I just love it. I think it's so smart. I mean, we talked a little bit before we started recording about like the second half of life stuff, and that's real second half of life stuff. That's like, okay, I've got the chutzpah to start this business. I'm gonna do this. I'm the only person that can do it. I'm a founder. I'm an innovator, and then you get to it and you start it, and now you're like, oh shit, like I'm a CEO, and it's not about me anymore, and it's about the people. And
I think it's actually when you make the switch into I've actually built something that's taking off. That's when it's like when you're like, oh my God, I've worked so hard and now we're here, and you think you're just going to be able to enjoy it or something, but there's a switch, and that's when you become accountable to the product, because the product is like the baby that you created, and it has its own, life and
Yeah.
its own agenda and so on and so forth. So I don't know. I think once I made the mental shift and I realized I am now in service of another/others, I was able to understand that, like, my higher purpose is to really follow through with that and to be committed to the mission of it. And something really wonderful happened within me. And so for the last few years, I've really been committed to growing the team, growing the business, and honestly, first and foremost, really doing right by our customers, and putting their needs and their pain at the core of how we think, how we operate, how we deliver, and so on and so forth. In terms of what the business does, by the way, because I haven't even told you about that.
well, yeah. So tell me about the business you started.
Yeah. So, look, I'm a data nerd, and I knew that I wanted to be in the business of data. I've always been fascinated by human beings, so I've wanted to understand, like, how could we collect data about people's behavior, people's feelings, and what really makes them tick. I think it's never been more important than today to understand how human psychology is influenced by content, by LLMs, by everything we see on the internet, and how that then drives decision-making behavior, whether it's about who we vote for or what we buy. And so Knotch was really started as an experiment to figure that out. And over time, it became really an intelligence platform for brands to tap into that mindset of the consumer. And as we evolved the functionality and kept listening to our customers, we went from just intelligence to optimization. So how, once you understand what makes people tick, how do you actually really give them more of what they value so that they choose to do business with you. And ultimately, I think over time, what I've seen we do with all of our customers is that we repair the value exchange between their brand, their advertising, and their consumers so that they're giving more value to the consumers, and the consumers at some point when the moment is right, they choose to do business with them.
Interesting. And how does that, how does data bring that relationship closer? How do you help mend that relationship using data?
So we collect the data at the moment of interaction, whenever the audience actually sees the piece of creative or content, and we essentially start to analyze what is that signal from the audience, what is it saying, what is the audience trying to tell us. Sometimes our platform also allows brands to ask the audience, in a moment when it's right, like how does this feel? Was this relevant to you? Because I really believe the truth is at the intersection of what we say about ourselves and what our behavior says about us.
Sure, yeah.
And so our platform is built around that belief.
Cool.
And so all of that data then goes into a feedback loop into the creative process, the distribution process, so that when brands create again to meet you, they understand more about who you are and what you want.
Cool. And is it agnostic across like platforms and channels? So like you could talk to somebody on TikTok or on the open web, or how do you, I guess, like get in front of the customer?
Yeah, so we get deployed across every brand owned or brand digital property. And every audience that arrives there, regardless of whether they're coming from TikTok or any other paid channel, paid campaign,
Got it.
we are able to track where they're coming from, how they're interacting, what are the kind of multiple touch points across many different sessions, even if it takes a year for that person to convert, and then use that intelligence to really help our customers make that journey better for both themselves and the customer.
Okay, cool. That's really interesting. What made you decide, like, or I guess, was this the idea on day one and it's just gone perfectly well? Or like, have you had to pivot throughout your journey of starting the company? Have you had to make some changes and be like, actually, we're gonna pivot this way?
So let me tell you that I think the notion of product market fit and the idea that you kind of land on something and you stick to it, I think it's a deeply flawed idea.
Yeah.
And it's one of those truisms in software that I hope I can participate in breaking down.
Yeah.
I think, so the answer is no. The very first idea couldn't have been more different. It was a social network for people to share how they feel about stuff and then connect based on it. The core of the data collection was there. My interest and passion was there. The mission was the same because we wanted to take that data and create a better value exchange between brands and audiences. But the mechanism of collection, where we collected, delivery, the client, the visualization of the data, how the data empowered the brands, that wasn't there. We didn't really have a great vision for that. So I would say that was maybe a harder pivot when we went from just being primarily focused on the consumer to being focused on the brand. But then it used to be every year. Now it's probably every 3 to 6 months because of AI. There's smaller pivots in what we do. And I think if we don't pivot, we don't survive because the idea of product market fit is predicated on the idea that market stays the same. But market is not the same.
Course.
Market is changing so quickly with agentic AI that we have to, stay ahead of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. And then how do you think about those pivots? Do you think about it as like, okay, great, it's Tuesday, we're making a pivot and that's okay? Or is it like is there a sense of like, this is kind of painful, but I'm so sorry guys, but we're gonna have to pivot again? You know what I mean? Is it built into the foundation, I guess?
So, look, I'm a first-time founder. I've made every mistake possible.
Okay.
And I feel like as a result, I've been able to, reflect and change based on that. So at the beginning, it felt really painful. Looking back, I now realize that the reason it felt painful is because we waited for too long.
Interesting.
And so now,
you were attached to it. You were attached to what you wanted it to be instead of letting it be.
Emotional attachment.
Sure.
But I think if you follow your intellect and the data, you end up turning too slowly because the data will tell you this is working, this is great, you're actually growing faster. you have to have some type of intuition. And I think that's the responsibility that comes with being a founder, a product visionary kind of founder. You have to kind of read the tea leaves. You have
Yeah.
to take the time to reflect on what could be around the corner.
Yeah.
And if you turn early enough, then it doesn't even feel like a pivot.
Right.
It feels like a build on.
Like
It
an
feels like an
innovation.
add-on, like an
Yeah.
innovation.
Right.
And you can integrate it organically into what you do, into how the customers perceive you, into the value they receive, and into how your team actually thinks of the company. Whereas if you pivot a little bit too late, it feels like a knee-jerk reaction, and you're often caught on the reactive side of it or on the defense.
Yeah. I think there's two threads I want to pull on there. One is about how you've made every mistake in the book, because I'm also a founder and I'm making mistakes left and right. So I want to pull on that thread. But I also want to pull on the thread of how do you, of you taking that data and sitting down with it and digesting it and understanding, like, okay, we're going to go in this direction, or the data's telling us, reading the tea leaves, as you said. Like, if you're, how much time do you spend on that? How do you make yourself do that? How do you, like, because obviously you're busy, you're running this business, you're in meetings all day, you have a child, you have a family. Like, how do you find the time to sit down and say, I'm going to dedicate, and I'm just asking, like, is it you build this into your week? Like, I'm going to dedicate like 3 hours to just like blue sky thinking this week, or how do you find the time to like to be able to do that deep thinking?
I realized about 2 years ago that it's my job and my responsibility to do that. And if I don't do it,
No one else will.
the company will hurt.
Right.
And I think deeply about the responsibility I have to everyone who has chosen to trust their livelihood by working at Knotch. So I take it very seriously. I take it as like, if I don't do this, then I'm not doing right by the people who believed in us, our employees, first and foremost, our customers, and our investors. So what I do, I take 2 days a week that are dedicated to internal meetings. I call them focus days. I try not to have meetings at all if I can help it. Sometimes external meetings land, and that's okay, but I minimize them. And I go on very long solo walks on those days.
Genius.
And I just think. And I sometimes just let things come up. Sometimes I feel things and I pursue the feeling to see what comes up. So yeah,
That's awesome.
It's not a linear process, but I
Right.
know that I have to do it.
Build
And
that in
every
there.
time I do it, I come back with something new and fresh and
Yeah.
exciting. And then I call my co-founder, I call my COO, and I'm like, hey, what does this mean and how do we make it a reality?
That's interesting. I love that idea of like giving yourself that time where you're not being pulled. I was talking to a friend who's an artist recently, and I was telling him I run a PR agency, okay? And I was like, my problem is a lot of times when I try to go into deep thinking work, or I try to go into that mode, I feel bad. I feel like I'm leaving. My Slack's unanswered, my email's unanswered. Like, I'm not at I'm not being there for my clients. I'm not. And he was like, yeah, I don't know how you're ever, he's a painter. He's like, I go into my studio and I don't talk to anyone. I leave my phone in the other room and I don't speak to anyone for like 10 hours. I don't know how you could possibly have a creative idea or a creative intuition if you're constantly connected to Slack.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like that, that's such a good point. It's like investing the time in the walk, or investing the time in like the taking the space, is like a necessary thing to make your business stronger.
I want to make 2 points. That the first one, I really believe that as AI and agentic AI becomes wider spread, I think we will inevitably have less things to do. And the notion that to be valuable as a human, you have to be productive, will break down. And I think we're going to have to do a lot of soul searching as a race about like, what is our purpose? Because it's not going to be productivity anymore. So that's like a meta.
That's
a
a
meta
very,
point.
I mean, that's a very, Aldous Huxley had that. And I know we
Yes.
talked about
I
Aldous
know.
Huxley, but he talks about
I love him.
we may only work 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
And what will we do with the rest of our time?
I think that's okay. I mean, maybe we'll finally have time to figure out what our actual purpose is. But beyond that, on a practical level, I do want to kind of come back into reality. I would not be able to take this time unless I had a great team. And it took years to find an incredible leadership team. And I got so many people or decisions around people wrong, and it was painful, and so on and so forth. So and when there's a fire, I jump in there with my team. It's not like I go meditate on the future of the world. So I want to be realistic. It takes time to build a great team, to build a business that has stability, a profitable, growing business. So I feel like I now have earned myself the right. And also I have the responsibility to take this time. But
I think that makes
you kind of have to hustle to get here.
Right. You have to like lay the foundational work.
Yes.
So that you can do some navel gazing, which I think makes sense. Okay, so back to the question of like founder mistakes, because I guess that's a rite of passage. You just have to do them, and there's no book that you can read that's going to be like, hey, avoid X, Y, and Z. Or even if it said that, you would still not. You still bumble your way through.
Going back to the idea that founders have ego to start, and you need ego to start. I think even if there was a book, you'd be like, I don't need to read any books. Like, I'm gonna figure this out, right? And you need that to get started.
Right.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
My mantra was always, companies don't fail, people give up. And so I kept repeating that to myself through all those Darwinian years where there were so many more ways to die than ways to live. And honestly, at times, that was the only thing that was keeping me going and probably keeping the company alive.
Could you say that one more time?
Companies don't fail, people give up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're if you give up, you're definitely going to fail. Like that is the,
I mean, not saying that you shouldn't give up. Like sometimes maybe that's the right decision.
Sure.
But I was raised in a way where that wasn't. And I'm grateful to it because
of course.
It's part of who I am and, my DNA and my truth. And so by staying true to that, I'm kind of living out what I'm supposed to live out. But for others, it may not be the case. I do think that that's a bit of a requisite for building a big company because there's, again, so many ways to die. And
how
I think
many
that
years
time
have you been
repeats.
doing it?
About 10.
Right. And so so 10 is like long enough now.
Yeah.
Where you've gone through a lot of those things. You've had your dark night of the soul.
Totally.
You've had times where you're like, well, this isn't going to work.
Yes.
It's going to fail. How do I pay payroll this month? I'm assuming.
Yes.
And so you've kind of come out the other side at this point.
Yes.
And now you have this beautiful business that you can like feel proud of. I'm in year 2. And I keep having to remind myself, as you said, just like don't quit, keep going, stay consistent. And it takes a long time. It takes a long time.
I think it takes a long time if you want to build a durable business that does right by its customers and people. It might take a shorter time if you want to flip a business. It's I think it's kind of like real estate in that way.
Right.
I think one of the mindsets that's tough as a founder is, we all raise money in tech. And I think there's a mindset that you're not successful unless you manage to flip. And I actually think the best investors are patient investors because they know that the bigger, kind of foundational, generational company will be built in time with a lot of the right fundamentals. And even public markets, I think, in the last few years after the COVID frenzy have started to reward companies that are able to grow really well but grow profitably.
Well, I mean, I think that is good news for people like you who have the guts to stick through it and keep going and want to build an actual successful business and not just flip to the next thing.
I mean, I'm doing it first and foremost because I love what I do. And every day I feel like I'm the luckiest person. Like I'm flying,
That's amazing.
I love what I do.
That's amazing.
And I love the people that I do it with. That's a huge part of it. I love our customers. I love how passionate they are about what we do and what we can do together. And so the rest is just fun,
That's
awesome. Even the hard stuff is fun to some extent if you approach it the right way.
Mm-hmm. Do you, how many people do you have working for you?
We're close to 150 now.
Wow. So you have 150 people that they're here because you started this thing and kept going with it. Yep. And that is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
I mean, but I don't think about that necessarily, to be
honest.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you kind of are, as you said before, you are responsible
for them and to them. I think about the responsibility for sure. what I think is cool, like the when I get out of bed and I'm like, wow, I get to do this, is the fact that it is my values, it is the culture that I believe we should build in a business. It is the opportunity to maybe ring in a new wave of capitalism, a new wave of how you build a company. Like that sort of stuff gets me really excited beyond the fact that I love what we do and our customers and so on. So I've been thinking about that more and more, and how do I verbalize that in a way that could maybe create a bigger impact.
Yeah, as some unsolicited free advice as from a marketing and PR person, I think that you should start talking about that.
Maybe you can help me.
Yeah, in a bigger way on a bigger platform, because that's really important. And I think coming from a female founder saying that we need to rethink the way that we're doing capitalism, that we can have businesses that are win-win, that we can have relationships with clients and customers that are win-win, that we can build long-term businesses that like matter and we don't have to, be in and out, that you can find investors that believe in the vision, like that you can care about your team and feel responsible to them. Like, I just feel like these are things that you should be speaking about.
Totally. And also that it's not a zero-sum game and everyone is after you.
It's not a zero-sum game.
I feel like every
There's
time
enough light to shine on everybody.
On X, Twitter, X, all these founders who are usually guys, they're just all like, they think they're competing with one another, but really they're competing for customer attention. And I don't know, it's two very different things. And so I often consider that, like, it's not a zero-sum game. AI is actually lifting all boats. There's ways for all of us to win. It's just different. The playbook is different. So anyway, yeah, I if there's one thing I'm not great at is marketing myself. So maybe you can help me with that.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. I mean, you've been focused for 10 years on a project and you've had a mission, and like the mission wasn't about you.
Yeah.
And now you're probably at that point where it's like, okay, well, how can I help to talk about this and like talk about this experience? Because I think going back to the reason is because it will help other founders. It will help other executives. It will help other women. You know what I mean? I do think that there's a net positive to it. It's not just about like you elevating yourself. It's like you're elevating yourself to say these messages that other people need to hear.
I hope so.
Yeah, I love
that
it.
would be fun to do.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so if you had some advice to give to your young self as you were just starting the business, what would you tell her?
I would tell her, oh gosh, I mean, I think as a founder, I had so many of the right things at the time, which is passion, grit, determination, focus. The things that I wasn't able to do really well at that point, I didn't have a lot of emotional clarity or just clarity in general, and I think it came from an insecurity, like kind of a bit of a self-worth issue, because ego and insecurity, they're like the same thing, except mirror images of one another.
I always say behind every superiority complex is an inferiority complex.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so I kind of want to say to her, you kind of have to deal with that. Like, just know that you're going to have to go into the dark closets and deal with that before you can build a big business. You can't build an empire if you can't escape the haunted forest.
And was the haunted forest within?
Of course. It always is. It always is.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like Brad and I sometimes talk about, like, it's okay. Like, that's the journey and that's the path. And you were meant to make the mistakes. You were meant to, like, figure these things out,
100%.
But, like, yeah, like looking back, it's like, okay, well, what advice could I give that younger me where I could just be like, just hold on, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like trust the journey, be patient. Yeah, like flow a little bit more. I wasted so much energy pushing against walls that were immovable. If I could just let go and focused on the other stuff, I probably would have actually moved faster.
How has being a mom changed some of that for you? I imagine pushing against walls that are not moving and letting that go becomes easier when you have other priorities that you're focused on. So, like, how has becoming a mom changed your POV as a founder?
Well, look, let me tell you something. I know that there's kind of a correct answer to this, and I feel all those things. I feel that it has made me more empathetic and more open. And, I feel like at that point, my leadership team had almost everyone, I think everyone actually were parents. So it enabled me to better understand and work with them. But I do honestly feel like for a while there, I was a worse CEO. Being pregnant for me was tough at times, and postpartum was really tough. And I didn't have the ability to make very good decisions. I was so overwhelmed emotionally and physically, and it was a tough time for the business. And I don't think I made the best decision. So I've said this to my team a few times, but conversely, I've gone through the process of really breaking down as a result of becoming a mom. I feel like all the stuff that the kind of dark closets I was running away from, they all came. And so as I worked through them, and now that I have worked through them, I am, like 100 times better CEO than I was before. So I don't know how to really do the net math on that, but there was a journey there. It wasn't like this beautiful, serene thing where I was just glowing the whole time, and then I was like breastfeeding while answering emails. It wasn't like that at all. It was dark at times, and I had to work through it to get to this place.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, I have days where I feel like I'm not doing right by anyone. Like the mom guilt is real. I don't know how it's so deeply embedded, like at a cellular level, in spite of my awareness of it, but then I have some days where I'm like, I can do everything. And the difference maker and the thing that really fills my heart is other moms. I feel like I've found this amazing community of other moms who, whether they're working or not, are just so kind and supportive.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
do you think it's a little bit of the Ojai, spiritual vortex of it all?
I mean, we sort of moved there because of the community.
Yeah, that's cool.
There's something about that place that's very live and let live.
Cool.
There's nothing worse than being in a difficult place as a mom and feeling judged while also judging yourself. And so finding that group of women that can, stand in their power and also kind of let you be up and down and all over the place and support you is cool. A true difference maker.
It's really cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I just loved our conversation. It's
Same.
so fun to get to hear from women who are founders and CEOs and figuring this stuff out, and then also have this perspective of spirituality and the bigger mission of life, the bigger purpose of life. It's just, I don't know, it's really cool, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk.
No, I appreciate it. Your questions were great. You took me to places I didn't expect I would go, so thank you.
Well, Anda, thank you so much for joining me.
Of course.